Meep, 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 meep. Good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of Where Are They Now? I'm your host, Ichabod Presents. Tonight, we're very happy to feature the effervescent Lucille Orr-D'oeuvre, that classic chef who keeps coming back with better recipes every time. Lucille, how are you this evening?
Oh, Ichabod! I'm so honored to be here. I've always thought your show was for more illustrious characters, so I'm glad to be considered among them. How are you?
I'm supposed to ask the questions around here, Missy. Understood?
Snippy today. Got it. Check and check.
When am I not? Are you prepared for our lightning round questions, then?
Fire away!
Favorite band?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
So you like to dance, too?
Mm-hmm.
Favorite dish?
You see, normally that would be a tough question to ask any chef, but in preparation for this interview, I knew this was going to come up, so I spent a lot of time hawing and hemming through lists of possible candidates, so I wouldn't waste all your time.
Yes, see, lightning round means quick answers, Lucille. I'm snippy today, you know.
My favorite dish of all time is a combo, grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Ugh, a universal classic. Great flavor pairing, yin and yang balance, all the good things. But let's tie a key on that kite tail here. Lightning round, lightning. Favorite season?
Do we really have to ask? Harvest season, of course. Cornucopia.
You do make amazing food, I can see why. Favorite road trip?
Hands down, it was the time I took part in a cross-country program to teach basic cooking skills to youth in rural communities that didn't have a home ec program in their school. It was an old ice cream truck that we retrofitted with a generator, and we stuffed all the usual kitchen appliances in there, while most of us folk were squashed in a minivan, and we traveled across the country, coast to coast to coast like that. We'd pull into a school parking lot, plug everything into the generator, and set it up right there on the tarmac like a pop-up kitchen. We'd show the kids some basic skills, and by the end of the workshop, they were flipping omelets like pros. We did this, a couple nutritionists and I, to help the young folk get the necessary tools to take care of themselves, so they aren't just eating processed junk from a frozen box while they're starving students or striking out on their own. And the kids were the best part of it. They had such an appreciation for the lesson. I'd thought they'd be throwing rotten tomatoes at us, but it was a beautiful experience. I learned just as much from them as they did from me. You know, I learned Gangnam Style on that journey.
Marvelous. I always love to hear of journeys that lead to so much good coming out of them. And now, for the tell-all question, how did you become everyone's favorite kitchen goddess?
Oh, Ichabod, I'm certainly no goddess, but I am a kitchen dweller at heart. I've always been in love with food. When my parents brought the pamphlet of programs offered at our community center out and asked my big brother if he wanted to play t-ball or some other activity, they proceeded to read through the long list to see if anything would interest him. When they said cooking, I lit up like a prison yard during an escape alert, so I went. It was a class aimed at children, of course, you see, but I was by far the youngest at 3 years old, and I even had my picture in the local paper. By the time I was 14, I had a cornbread recipe memorized by muscle that I could prepare almost blind. I was a master of brunch, made chocolate-dipped bananas every Friday, and my clementine sugar cookies were adored by my classmates and teachers alike. Mind you, every time I did anything in my mother's kitchen, she'd hover over me the entire time, lecturing me on where that bowl was or where to find that spoon, all things I clearly knew that she got her kicks out of nitpicking that way. I didn't have the privilege to go away to school. The illustrious kitchens of the Cordon Bleu were far out of my reach. I went to community college for a 2-year program in commercial kitchens. The faculty were great, the classmates were great, but the program was essentially a stretched-out version of what I did in the parking lot for kids years later. After I graduated, I could have stayed in my hometown and worked in a restaurant and lived in my parents' basement, which I'm sure they would have loved. But as I've hinted at, living with my parents was no cakewalk. I mean, it isn't for anyone. But let me put it this way. My therapist assured me my family was especially scary. I may not have known that explicitly at the time, but I knew a person like me needed a bigger opportunity in a city further from the clutches of certain people. So I moved to the nation's capital without a job, a home, or a friend. But I made it work. I was young. I make friends easily, and I was sure my talents were enough to offer me a good prospect. I ended up working in a restaurant and living in some couple's basement for $1,000 a month. This is the part I always tell people to pay attention to. I was really down, living in poverty, no family, but still getting up every day, still being dependable at work, still putting my skills and talents to use. And it was doing this through my difficult life that I was recognized by my peers. One of my co-workers, dear Rosie, nominated me to the manager for Employee of the Month. A very small token, you might think, but it changed everything. I was Employee of the Month 4 months running. Now, working in the kitchens, I never knew the customers who were in the dining room eating our food, and never gave much thought to whom they might be. Well, the Employee of the Month had their photo hung on the wall right beside the door, so everyone knew I'd impressed the pants off the whole kitchen. And this restaurant had some bigwigs as regulars. Next thing I knew, I was offered a scholarship to the most prestigious chef program in the country, training at the Grand Capitol Hotel. Now, if I thought the customers at the restaurant I worked at were important, at the hotel we had dignitaries and artists from all around the world. Not to gloat, but I did well in my class, though admittedly far from the most impressive. But I certainly was noted among my peers for having the biggest, most cheerful personality in the lot. A certain type of person goes for that, and after 8 months of training, I'd secured a job in the kitchens of the Belgian embassy. I was there for 16 years, working up through the ranks, and sous chef for 4 of those. I don't want to glaze over the whole experience, but there'd be so much more to tell about. I'm sure I'll write a memoir someday, if I ever put down the Santoku knife long enough. But there, I learned a lot of fascinating recipes and fascinating things about the ingredients. Oh, you'll never be as familiar with an escarole as I am.
I wouldn't expect to be, but do go on about these years. If not tonight, then get to writing. I'm captivated.
Well, those years were what I consider my forever young phase. I was just a kid learning the ropes of being an adult. I learned about love. I learned about money. I learned how gentrification will kick you from one crummy apartment to an even crummier one for a higher cost. But it was during this time that I really delved into the science and history of food, learning about how that plant was first cultivated and used versus what it has become, and how or if we even use it today. Learning more about the science of food, how the cell walls break down or stay preserved, how the spinach holds so much more iron than the potato. Things like that really gave me a deeper understanding of what I was cooking and how applying different techniques can make such a big difference, like letting the pancake batter sit for a while. But times change. Ambassadors change, embassies change, geopolitical relations change, and it was time for me to move on after 8 years as head chef. So yes, 24 years is a long time to stay in the kitchen. So I got involved in food security advocacy. That had a lot less to do with shopping and a lot more to do with discussing and educating. Most governments hadn't even heard of the term food desert yet, so we had a lot of explaining to do. The team I worked with had an appreciation for my bold personality, and they asked me to be the narrator for a video we were making highlighting the connections between food deserts and big grocery. And during the making of that film, they all told me I was a natural for the camera. The video did well, too. We were given agreements to work with every organization we solicited on improving access to healthy food for underserved communities. I guess I just have a voice that sticks with you. This was around the time I did the parking lot tour, too, and I was feeling a bit like a rock star, what with a traveling show adored by teens and all. Well, the editor of this film had so much fun working with my voice, he passed the link on to his buddies in the industry, and within a few weeks I was being tapped for the host of Yes, Chef, and the rest as we know it is history.
More like making history, is that right?
Well, we are creating a completely different take on cooking shows, where most tend to focus on fancy, impressive dishes that'll put a feather in your cap, the kind of stuff I made at the embassy. Our show focuses on real, home-cooked meals that you'll want to make over and over again, using healthy, fresh foods. Sort of a Rachel Ray meets the two fat ladies deal. But we always include an informational bit. Either we're teaching about a specialized cooking tool or discussing how a different cheese will change the dish, that sort of thing. We always try to impart more wisdom than simply the how-to, and we try to keep it fun and accessible for all to understand. We're not trying to be fancy. We just want to help people cook healthier and enjoy doing it.
Wonderful. Now, I understand you've brought us a special poem to share.
One I wrote myself, Ichabod, entitled Potato. Scalloped, whipped, spiraled, even Hasselback, fancy. Tuber, grow in spring.
Bravo! Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I didn't realize you were also a poet. Add that to the long list of accomplishments. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Lucille. It really is a pleasure chatting with you. You're such a joy to be around. The next Yes Chef will be making what? I can hardly wait to see it.
You watch the show too?
Of course, I love it. Even my budgie Samuel perks up and starts singing when you come on.
Glad to hear we're reaching new audiences. Next show, we'll be making oatmeal raisin cookies, a divisive one. You'll love 'em or you hate 'em, but we get through all the details.
More comfort food couldn't be better. Really looking forward to that. Thank you for joining us tonight, Lucille.
The pleasure was all mine, Ichabod. Bye-bye.
And thank you, folks, for joining us tonight on Where Are They Now? You can catch us and new Yes Chef episodes right here on Radio Yasmoot. Until then, I'm Ichabod Brumbles. Good night.